In the Battle of Appomattox, there was a total of 89,285 soldiers from each side. The Union, 63,285, and the Confederates, nearly 30,000. The total estimated casualties was near 700. The Union had 14 killed, 74 wounded, 64 missing and captured, with 158 in total. The Confederates had 440 casualties and had nearly 27,000 that surrendered.
This battle in Virginia, fought by the Union commander Ulysses S. Grant and the Confederate General Robert E. Lee, resulted in the Union General Ulysses S. Grant taking home the bragging rights, while the Confederate General Robert E. Lee failed his army.
The day is April 9th, 1865. It is around 8 a.m. in the morning. Neither the Union or the Confederates knew that this day would mark the end of the Civil War. At the start, 9,000 soldiers were under orders of Gordon, Fitzhugh, and Lee. These soldiers were then deployed in the fields west of the village before dawn and were awaiting for the Union to attack. To start the battle, an attack led by General Brian Grimes of North Carolina against the Union cavalry was initially successful. The Union fell back outnumbered and regathered to reattack.
This part of the battle gave the South small pride, thinking they've won, but the battle was far from over.
After this, the Union started arriving from the west and the south, completing the whole encirclement of Lee's army.
At this time, Confederate General Longstreet's troops were being pressed from the rear near New Hope Church, which was about 3 miles east of the village.
General Ulysses S. Grant's main objective in this battle was cutting off Lee's army and destroying them close at hand. He completed this by finishing his encirclement of Lee's whole entire army. Accepting the inevitable odds, Lee ordered his troops to retreat through the village and back across the Appomattox River. Small regiments of resistance on each side continued to fight until flags of truce were sent out from the Confederate lines in between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Being the rather intelligent general that Lee was, he decided to surrender the Army of Northern Virginia to the Union rather than destroy his army and sacrifice the lives of his soldiers to no purpose left in the battle. Although this was not the exact end of the war, Lee's surrender of Northern Virginia's army set the stage for its ending. After the conclusion of the battle, each side decided to meet at the Appomattox courthouse to commit to the terms of the war. Near 1 in the afternoon, after the battle was complete, General Lee, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Marshall of his own staff, and Colonel Orville Babcock of Grant's staff met in the Appomattox house. 58-year-old General Lee, by this point in the war, was exhausted. No recorded evidence was ever found of Lee getting barely any sleep during this whole entire war. Just about 30 minutes past 1 p.m. in the afternoon, Ulysses S. Grant arrives and at first speaks to General Lee about past memories instead of getting right to the point of the truce. Lee then brought up the point of the surrendering. Ulysses S. Grant decided to choose another table, brought out a pencil, and wrote down a rough draft of a letter for General Lee. This was confusing because usually wars end in a truce. Although Ulysses S. Grant wrote General Lee a letter asking for the terms that he would like also. General Ulysses S. Grant then gave the generous terms to General Lee that all Confederate soldiers would lay down all weaponry and they would be able to go home on parole right from the Appomattox. This also meant that officers were allowed to carry their sidearms and their swords. At this point, Lee had Charles Marshall of his own staff write the letter back to Ulysses S. Grant, agreeing to the terms given. At nearly 3 p.m. in the afternoon, this entire meeting was over, and the first one to leave was Ulysses S. Grant. Once Lee exited the house also, he and Grant exchanged a tipping of the hats before Lee returned to his army of many men, wondering if the rumors were true. After the conclusion of this entire meeting and the entire battle, the ending of the Civil War was very near. All that was left were simple steps left politically to end this dispute between the Union and the Confederates. After 4 years of Civil War, the United States of America were united in the spring and summer of 1865. Through blood, smoke, and gravel, we became one and undivided.